Once Upon a Time in Springfield is the 10th episode of the 21st season of The Simpsons, directed by Matthew Nastuk. And there are some interesting things about this. I don't really think I enjoyed the episode as a whole, but there were bits that I thought were pretty good. The main narrative I'll get in with in a moment, but very briefly we have a narrative that focuses on Homer, Carl and Lenny, and the fact that they're being headhunted by somebody and they're kind of warming up to this person, mostly because Burns has taken away the donuts. So the thing that appealed to them at the power plant is no longer there. So maybe it's going to be easier for them to be headhunted. Will Burns get to keep his stuff? I'll say no more. It's an interesting enough narrative. It's nice filler. I didn't mind it too much. It was fine. The main narrative focuses on Krusty and a new co-star, in particular a female co-star. And this is Princess Penelope, voiced by the brilliant Anne Hathaway. And as a character, she was sickly sweet, very sickly sweet, but in a way that was quite entertaining. And we dig quite deeply into the character, her backstory, what she was like as a child, and it's all relevant. It's not just filler content, it's relevant to the narrative. I don't want to say too much about why it's relevant, but it was definitely... She's a much more detailed character than I was expecting. And then having somebody like Anne Hathaway voicing her, it was great. So, as a character, I really liked her. I liked the fact that Lisa was very happy with her. There are some comments in this episode about how women ruin things, and the episode doesn't really do very well to dispel that myth. But I don't really think it's enough that I can say, oh, the episode was horrible to women, I'm offended, because I'm not. I don't think that was the show's intention. It was just a joke, which I know is not always a cop-out, but in this case I do feel like they weren't trying to be negative about women. It was just some characters' opinions. But generally I found the treatment of this character to be really interesting. Definitely a well-written character, and great voice acting, of course, as well. So it ticks all of the right boxes, but I just feel like there was something missing in the narrative to make it maybe a little bit funnier. It wasn't a very funny episode, and it's not so much that it was sentimental either. There are some episodes of The Simpsons that are not that funny, but they're moving, or emotional, or thought-provoking. This one was kind of none of those things. So we had an interesting character, I was fascinated by her, but in terms of the narrative and the emotional response, it was lacking. It was definitely lacking something. I won't say what happened at the end, but I was surprised by what happened at the end. I was also surprised by the text that comes up at the end. This isn't a spoiler for what happens in the episode, not at all, but I will tell you what the wording was, because I'm slightly confused. Well, am I confused? I don't know if I'm confused or if I just thought it was a bit weird. At the end, some writing comes up on screen and it says something to the effect of, "Thank you for 20 wonderful years, here's to more to come," or something like that. The best is yet to come. There we go. I googled it and I thought, okay, that's bizarre. That's a bit random, because it's not as if it's like the last episode in the 21st season and they were saying, hey, we've been on for this many years, let's celebrate. It just felt really bizarre. And apparently it was actually initially talking about Seth MacFarlane, and it was something that they decided to edit out before broadcast to spare Seth MacFarlane's feelings, which I thought in itself was quite bizarre. But at the same time, why not just take it out altogether? I don't understand. As I said, had it been at the end of a season, that would have been a nice way to end the season. Unless maybe this episode was not meant to be this early on in the 21st season. I don't know. It just felt so random. It's not a big deal. I can move on from it. But it confused me. When I first learned that it was meant to be saying something about, now here are 3 Seth MacFarlane shows or something, I thought, okay, that's a bit bizarre, but like, I get it. But then they decided to not do that. Fine, but take the text out. Don't just leave it in there and change it. Just get rid of it, because it's not funny and it's not very sentimental, because it's not the end of the season. So it's not like, wow, we've succeeded in doing this many seasons in 20 years. Don't worry, we'll be back with more, because presumably they were back next week with another episode, so I don't know, it just felt pointless. I didn't mean to talk about it this much, but the point is, if anybody has any more information about that, about why they ultimately decided to change it, or indeed why they decided to still keep it at all, I'd be keen to know. I googled it, I didn't look too deeply into it, but I couldn't find anything conclusive immediately. But either way, it's a good episode. It's not a perfect episode, but I certainly didn't mind it.